What's up, everybody? I wanted to do a quick post. Just had some things on my mind. I wanted to, like I said, for the new year, I want to try to get these posts out there. And whenever the thoughts come to me, I just kind of want to get them out to you guys. So I'm driving, but I still want to get the post out. Little quick message. I was thinking a little bit earlier today, basically about the overall message that I'm constantly trying to give to everybody in terms of mental conditioning. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of get out there about the message is that, I speak about it so much because it is my passion. And I think that it is so essential to our lives. Mental conditioning is the key to our lives. How we think, how we train our minds is really, the key to the forward progress of our lives. And I talk about it so much because I do think it's just imperative. I do think that I can't put enough emphasis on how important it is. I can't stress how important it is. That's why I do talk about it a lot, and I do talk about it with a great deal of passion. But one of the things that I want to kind of make clear about it is that sometimes in my passion and just my rigorous effort to get everybody kind of on the same page with me and thinking of how important the message is, I think sometimes it comes out as if it's kind of a matter-of-fact thing. And that's one of the things I want to kind of get out there and be clear that, mental conditioning is not an easy thing. As a matter of fact, mental conditioning is a very, 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 very difficult process. The process of training your mind is extremely, extremely, extremely difficult. It's a very difficult process. I think that's the challenge of it. That's why, all of us don't have it, because it is not easy to attain. It's not easy to train your minds. I always liken, mental conditioning to physical conditioning. And not everybody's walking around with big bulging muscles and, flat stomachs and six-pack stomachs. Not everybody's walking around with that because it's not easy to do that. It takes a great deal of, training, a great deal of hard work and dedication. In a physical gym, but it takes a great deal of training, a great deal of hard work and dedication in the mental gym to train your mind to get to certain levels of superior mental conditioning. And we have to work hard at it, but be very, 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 very clear that it's an extremely, 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 extremely difficult challenge. The concept of it is not difficult. It's not something that, each and every time when I do workshops or I do my messages or whatever it may be, if I'm doing a post on Facebook, the concept of it is nothing really that I'm ever going to really say anything that, people are going to be like, whoa, I never heard of that before. It's always going to be kind of something that you heard of. But the execution of what we're talking about when we're talking about training our mind, that's the most difficult part about mental conditioning. The execution stage, the execution part of it. It's not, like I said, I'm not going to say anything that's, wow, you never heard before. All of these things that we've heard and nothing special. But the special part about it is those of us that can go out there and those of us who are going to have the ability to execute the exercises. I always talk about exercises, and again, there's mental exercises that we have to go through. I talk about the only exercise that is essential, that we all must do at all times, is self-evaluation. There's so many mental exercises that we can use, but the main one is self-evaluation. And that exercise right there is very, 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 very difficult. It's very difficult for us to look into ourselves and be honest and assess ourselves accurately. But I always say, if you don't do that, you're really messing up the whole process. The process of mental conditioning does not begin until you can accurately do your self-evaluation. So that right there is showing you right off the bat how difficult of a process mental conditioning is. The concept of it is not hard, but it's the execution part of it that's very, 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 very difficult. One of the things, and for me, these are things that I'm writing. This is something that I feel like I've been groomed for my whole life to do this, but it's become clear to me, and I was able to put a face on it within the past 3 years, and I've been trying to work as hard as I can to, make that face as presentable as possible. But I even go through challenges, each and every day, challenges to my mental conditioning, and I have to work extremely hard to fight through those challenges. That's very, very, very challenging to me. One of the challenges that I go through, which everybody goes through, one of our biggest challenges is the fear. It's fear. Fear is always, a huge part of our mental conditioning, and that's a big thing. Many of us in life, we train our minds and we put in that hard work and dedication, but fear will wipe out all of that hard work that we've, been in the gym, the mental gym, preparing our minds to go forward. Fear is what I call a fatty food. Not a fatty food that we eat, but a fatty food to our brain. The intake. When we look at our society is feeding our brain all kinds of things. Some of the things are positive, some of the things are negative. Those negative things sometimes is what I call fatty foods, and fear is a tremendous fatty food. So we have to be able to train our minds to get past that fear. And that's why I would say there's another exercise. There's another exercise that you can use. Everyone is different. There's thousands of exercises out there that you can use for mental training. Everybody is different. One of the things that I like to use to combat my fears is an exercise that I like to call ownership. Ownership. That's a big term to me when you're talking about mental conditioning. That also goes back to self-evaluation. Ownership. Being able to own. In this particular case, you're talking about fear. Being able to own your fear is a big part of being able to not conquer it, but just to be able to manage it. It's kind of similar to if you're buying a house. I think ownership, first of all, is a powerful thing in our society. I like to own stuff. You own a house, property, real estate. Those are all big things. In the music industry, there's people who do music but having ownership of your masters, having ownership of your music is a huge thing. Somebody could be tremendously talented and they record a lot of songs, but if they don't own their music, somebody else is getting paid off their music that they wrote and produced. But in life, when we're talking about, training our minds, that ownership comes into play. I'm going to explain to you how. And we're talking about our fears now. If you don't own that fear, for me, one of the biggest fears that I have, ironically, is actually speaking in public. That's not the easiest thing for me. I'm not really I struggle socially. I'm not a person who does well in social settings. But I accept that fear. I own that, and now I know I have to make certain adjustments to it. So, in using the example of if you buy a house, sometimes you go out there, you buy a property, and that property may not, be up to par to where you want it. But if you own that property, guess what now you can do? You have the opportunity now to go out there and make the renovations on that property and make the property how you want to make it, because you own that property. You're not renting it, you own that property. So now I can go out there and make the renovation. Maybe I didn't like the windows, maybe I didn't like the door, maybe I didn't like the way the floors are, maybe I didn't like the colors, maybe I want to add a bathroom, maybe I want to put that pool out back. I can make this house exactly how I want to make it. And that's where ownership comes in. And it's the same thing when we're dealing with, fear in this particular case. Once I can own the fact that I have a fear of these things, I can make the necessary adjustments in my life, to get past those fears. Not conquer it, but to make the necessary adjustments to get past those particular fears that, that I have personally. And it's about making the adjustments. But if I don't admit to myself that I have this fear, if I don't take ownership that I have these fears, you're never going to be able to do anything to make the adjustments and to make the proper renovations for it. So very, 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 very important. Those 2 points is really powerful, and it's really key on my mind today, and just explaining and just really making it clear. Of course, I always say how important mental conditioning is to our lives, but also making it even more clear that this is not an easy process. It's a very, very, very difficult process. And we go through so many different obstacles that's going to push back, all the work that we do to gain tremendous mental conditioning and mental power and building our mental strength. There's going to be obstacles along the way that's going to try to push that strength away. But going out there, recognizing what it is, do our self-evaluation and ownership of what the obstacle is. In this particular case that I gave you guys, we talked about fear. So those two things, those two nuggets of gifts, give you some food for thought to think about when you're training your mind. And don't get discouraged when those obstacles come along. That's part of the process. It's part of the process. But again, the process is very, 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 very difficult. And don't get discouraged by, again, obstacles, and don't get discouraged by things not going smoothly. You know, that's just the process of mental conditioning, which is not easy. So I thought I would give you guys that, and I'm going to pay attention to the road because the traffic is very heavy. So everybody, have a good night, and I'm going to go home and head to the mental gym and put some work in. So I'll see you there. Talk to you guys later.